Assalamualaikum, Dr. Omar. I'm Raida, my husband Irfan. We have a 2.5-year-old and one on the way. So this is an age of like diapers and sleep deprivation, but we like to be prepared. So I'm a first generation migrant to Australia, but when I married my husband, I came back to KL. But I've seen so much fragmentation over the 20-year journey now. Because I moved when I was 12. My youngest sibling was 9 months. So there's six of us. So now if you look at our lives as adults, it's like, whoa, in terms of our life choices and decisions. So my question is, I guess, more for my mom. Like, how do you as a mother, seeing now adult children who are living their lives in very different forms, not all practicing, I guess it's interesting. The pattern would be like the older ones, because we left Singapore much older. We have a bit more sense of tradition and value and religion. But then the younger ones are like very different. So how do you as a parent make space for that reality that influence is gone? And it's like terrifying because it's like, oh, these are my auntie, uncle for my baby.
Yeah.
So how do you make space for that? And how do you prepare for that in the future?
No, thank you. Thank you for that question. That's emotionally, it's a very difficult thing to think about. Like I told you by age 9, right? The parental, and your child is already 2.5. So like I've only given you 7 years left with your child. But of course, that's a very, that's a very black and white way of thinking. These are just rules of thumb. These are not necessarily set in stone. But it's a terrifying thing to experience. One of the best quotes I heard was on the radio once. This guy was being interviewed. It wasn't related to parenthood, but they mentioned, oh, you have a child now, and the guy said, having a child is like being held hostage to the world. That's it. Like once you have a child, you're hostage to the world because you don't really know what your child's future is going to be like, and you're basically always held in some kind of limbo. You're not really sure. You're always having some concern. And I think that's a very real way to think about it because the other aspect of it is we have to always remind ourselves that these children, they do not belong to us. They're not our property, They belong to Allah. These are just gifts that Allah has given us for certain times of our life. And He can then move that person to a different phase, and it's not really your call to make. It's not you don't own this child. Although we feel like it sometimes, this is mine, but really it's not. Allah decided to bring this into your life, and then Allah may decide a different future for them, or even something greater than you could imagine, So it's not positive or negative. It's nothing personal. So that's the hardest thing about human relationships, is we take it very personal. It's a weird thing, but in the spiritual mindset, you're not supposed to take these things very personal, right? Okay, you have a wife or you have a children, but these are all things that were designed by the divine plan, right? And so when you say, "Uhibbuka fillah," right? I love you for the sake of Allah. That means that I don't love you because intrinsically you make me laugh or you make me smile, or because I love you because Allah placed you in my life at a certain moment. And that is my love for you is a reflection of my gratitude to Allah. That's what it is. It's nothing personal. I mean, it's not because of you intrinsically. So that's a very difficult thing for us. But if you're very materialistic, you want it to be a material connection. But if you're thinking other world, spiritual realities, and the fact that this life is so temporary, and what we're really focused on is the eternal life, then we don't want to. It doesn't make sense to put so much into thinking of it as this ownership connection, direct connection. It's not. It's an indirect connection through Allah, right? It's like if you think of two people, it's not a line between the two people. It's a triangle between you and Allah, and then that person and Allah. And that's how all of our relationships we should think about. Is that easy to do? No, because the emotions get involved, and we really feel like this child, their future, or my mom or my wife, my husband, their future, all of these things, we take it very personal. But in reality, it's not like that. We didn't decide any of these things. When we were born, we didn't know what our life was going to look like. Allah had already decided all that. So we have to take a sort of spiritual standpoint on that. And that's how that I think is probably what helps the prophets, when they think about some of the prophets, their children went astray, or some prophets, their fathers were astray, but they were on the right path. You know, this is the nature of the world. So learning to have that flexibility, and dealing with it and understanding. But I think it's also helpful to acknowledge this is a real emotion. This is a real frustration, a real worry that all of us have. Not even if you're just a parent, even if you have someone like you're a mentor to someone younger than you, and you look over them and you try to give them advice. It's the same concept that you feel like you have some role in their life, but ultimately Allah is going to decide. Uh, so, trying to balance that, we try to basically do what we can based on the knowledge that we have to the best of our ability, and that's really all we're asked to do. And frankly, that's more than what many parents do. Many parents, unfortunately, don't even think about it on that level. The fact that you're even thinking about it on this level is a good sign, because many parents, it's just kind of like a robotic thing. Like, I have children, just I just do a routine, and then they go off and they go on. They don't put this much thought into raising their children. And so we want to be very conscious about how we raise our children. And that's really all we're asked to do. And that's really all what they would, when they get older, if as intellect is sound, that's what they will recognize as well. They'll recognize, even if they disagree with you later in life, they'll recognize that you did what you did based on your knowledge and based on their best interest in mind. So to keep that balance is basically, the struggle that we have to, as much as we can. I mean, some some people say then that's why you should just have a lot of children, because maybe one of them will still love you when you get older or something like that. The rest may leave you or, try to desert you or go somewhere. Maybe one or two will come out good, so statistically that's what someone told me. But even then you don't know. You can't guarantee it, So, the best thing is not to make all of our joy dependent on these things, We should still be able to obtain joy directly from Allah, and the blessings that He gives us in our lives. If we start making all of our happiness dependent on these successes, then unfortunately it sets you up for disappointment. You will be disappointed in life. So better than to change your standards and not let that be the sole reason of what. Sometimes it's just the experience itself, the journey of being a parent. That in itself is the blessing. Not really the outcome. What the outcome is in Allah's hands.